Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the How People Work podcast. That's right. We finally have a new name that makes total sense. I think it's really cute. How People Work, kind of a double meaning there. Excited about the new name. And outside of that, business as usual. You know, it's pretty warm. It's July in Las Vegas, Nevada. And there's no trouble trying to stay warm this time of year here. So I'm glad to be inside for a few minutes to record this. And we got a really exciting and important discussion today about implementing the WorthWork system. So with a real example that happened just yesterday. And again, here's why it matters. What matters, first of all, just let me tell you this, all right? If you're a leader in any scope, and I mean in any scope, if you're a leader, particularly if you're leading employees, leading a team, if you're a manager in any scope, if you're part of a company as a supervisor or anything, okay? If you work with other people, if you're in a family, if you consider yourself a leader, you are a leader. But if you consider yourself a leader and you're interested in improving your leadership and improving the results that you get with people and in your organization, here's the deal. It's a good thing you're here because I can save you so much time. I mean, so much time, because here's the thing. I've been doing this for quite a long time now. And I've made all the mistakes. I think maybe not all of them, but damn near all of them. And I've practiced a bunch of them to know for sure that they don't work. I've done some of them for a long, long time. And so if you want to excel and if you want to move to the top sooner than later, not spin your wheels and waste a bunch of time, right here's where you need to be. Because I'm going to give you some of the keys that are going to shoot you. When I finally figured that some of these concepts, the foundation, the belief system that it took to change the behavior, to change the way things roll in my own life and then with other people, that's when the magic happens, okay? Now, you don't have to go about this and have it take decades like I did. You can just be right here with me, take in what you can, participate, contact me, and be a part of what we got going on here, and you'll shoot past all. You won't waste your time and spin your wheels and have all the negative results that I have practiced and done so much. You can be able to do a lot less than that because I've done things wrong for a long time. That's what makes me, specializes me, qualifies me in helping you do things right. Straight up. Today's about implementation, how it works, what it looks like in one aspect, just one piece of the WorthWork system. And I want to review why it's important in the first place, and that is this. As we implement the WorthWork system, people feel they trust that they're safe from value judgment in the workplace, okay? That changes how they feel. Now, we can't control how people feel. The only people that we can control how we feel sometimes is ourselves if we change our thoughts, okay? But we cannot control how other people feel. But we can influence what they think, because the way that we show up, the way that we relate to them, the way that we present has a tremendous influence on other people's thinking, therefore how they feel, therefore their actions, therefore their results, okay? So we can we can influence what they think about us, what they think about their workplace, what they think about their culture, the culture here, the company, their coworkers, and just how we roll around here. We have tremendous influence on how people think about that, and therefore how they feel, act, and the results that we get. So as we as people begin to trust us, what happens with this psychological safety? And again, I keep using that term, but what it means is, well, I haven't kept using it today, but what I mean when I say that is that people feel, they trust that they're safe from their value or their worth being judged. In other words, they don't think that you're going to think they're a certain kind of way or a certain kind of a person because they did a certain thing that might not have been the greatest thing. Okay. What happens in the workplace is that as people begin to trust you, okay, begin to trust their culture, trust their company, trust their leader, trust their coworkers in this unit that we're building, the fear goes down, because fear is what's driving almost all of this behavior that we don't want to have happen. People start to feel value instead of devalued. And then what happens then is they become more productive and they become more effective. Now, there is enormous fear wrapped up in work, in the workplace, in people's career, because the stakes are so high. It's your money, it's your mortgage, and it's your kids' food, it's your kids' future. Okay. And so the stakes are high. So therefore the fear is high. And so when I come into the workplace, when I show up in an online meeting or I come through the doors to work that day, the stakes are high. And I'm very cautious about how my perception of how people perceive me and how I'm perceived and how I think people think about me. It's a big thing. Okay. Because we're so concerned. And so we're worried about everything, because like I said, the stakes are high. There's a tremendous amount of fear wrapped up in this. And as we can influence people for them to feel trust, then as the trust goes up, the fear goes down. And the results that we're looking for as leaders, we have high performing people. We have high achievers. We have people that change how they behave. And it's pretty amazing to be able to see that, particularly if you have been through long periods of frustration and anger and don't think it'll change. And you've been blaming everybody and everything in the whole world about why everything sucks with human beings that you need to manage. And really, like I said, you can't change people, but you can change how you influence people and therefore change the results that you're getting back. There's 3 assumptions that you must hold. Now, I talk a lot about these in the system, but there's 3 assumptions that you must have before you implement it. And this is not something that you go and get and you say, okay, I got these assumptions and I have these belief systems now, because the WorthWorks system is not like, okay, check this off the list, check this off the list, check this off the list. Now I'm done with the system. Where's my big fat results? It doesn't work exactly like that. It works more like I commit to developing beliefs inside myself, okay? And as I change how I think and how I believe, then I start to implement the system with people. And as what is inside of me comes out, as I relate to other people, as I interact with other people, as I'm changing, you start to see the changing results. And that's how it rolls. Now, this can happen pretty quick. This isn't, something that you have to wait for results for an eternity to get. If you can change how you think, you can start changing the results that you're getting pretty quick. But there's 3 things I talk about. I'm just going to go over the 3 basic concepts that you must have. I'm going to assume that you already have these, and we'll talk more about these in the future. I've talked about some of them. This probably won't be the first time that you've heard of these ideas if you've listened to this podcast before. Number 1 is what I call the value foundation. Okay, so that is the first one of the 4 elements in the WorthWorks system. The value foundation means that we believe, that you believe, that I believe, that every human being is invaluable, okay, is 100% valuable and 100% equal. That I don't think, and that you don't think, that you're any more, any better, or any less than anyone else. Everyone is perfectly equal and has perfect worth, has perfect value. Okay, 100%, not 99, not 101, 100% valuable. Everybody. Nobody's worth more or less than anybody else, okay, no matter what they've done. And that has to start with how I see myself. So important. I need to be able to look at myself and say, can I honestly look at myself and say to myself that I am 100% valuable? Can I say that? I am 100% valuable. I am as equal to, but not better than, anyone who has ever been and or ever will or is currently on the earth. Period. End of story. Do I believe that? And that's a belief that we can continue to cultivate and build, and that we can internalize and develop. And as we do, then that comes out. But that needs to be number one, that we see people as one, as equally perfect. Okay. Their value, not what they do, their value. Assumption two is what I call the separation skill. Okay. What the hell's that, Shane? Separation skill means that we intentionally separate what people do from who they are, from what they are, from the kind of person they are. We separate value and worth and behavior. We separate that. That's the separation skill. And we say that behavior, the belief is that behavior, what people do or don't do, can have no effect on a human being's value, on their worth as a person. What they do has no impact on that. Okay. That means nothing that you or any other, again, this begins with you. Okay. I'm going to come back to that. But nothing a person can do can change their value. Okay. The value of their soul. Nothing. Period. Of all the things that people can do, and people can do some stuff. You know what I'm talking about. I've done some stuff. But of about all the things that people can do, that value has no impact on worth. Okay. This is a big belief system, and it can be a shift, or it can be a new thing, or hard to accept. You have to want to, you have to accept the idea. And I advocate for this belief. It's easy to argue. Sometimes people say, well, if you've done this, then you're this. I mean, how can you say, Shane, that people do all these horrible, horrendous things to each other, or, have the same value as this? And what I say is I say a lot of things, but one of the things I say is that everybody comes into this world as a baby, perfectly 100% valuable. And what they do doesn't change their worth before God, or before themselves, or before each other, unless we deem it to be so. And I don't believe it's for us. I don't think it's our decision. I mean, we do it unintentionally all day long. We're just taught to do that. I'll talk more about that here in a moment. But I don't think it's for us. I think that we live better lives and we have better results in our lifetime if we choose to believe that no matter what people do, it doesn't affect their worth. Now, that doesn't make anything right. It doesn't make anything okay. It doesn't absolve anybody from responsibility. People are accountable for what we do, and what we do matters. It matters tremendously. I mean, that's why we're here, to do what we're going to do or not do what we're going to do. I have to believe that about myself if I'm going to believe that about other people. Now, if I've got shame, okay, I've got to resolve my own shame. I need to work towards shame resilience and resolve the shame that I have, okay, and work towards becoming what Brene Brown calls shame resilient, okay, which means that we all experience shame, and when we do, we know how to process it and let it go and not hold on to it. So let's define what shame is. My definition says that shame means that because we did something that we judge or we value to be wrong, that we are devalued, or we are wrong. I did something wrong. Something is wrong with me. That's what shame means. And we're saying, no deal. You did something wrong. That's because you're a human being, not because something's wrong with you, because that's what human beings do. Sometimes they do things like that they regret, that they wish they wouldn't have. And the more that we hold on to that and make it mean something negative about ourselves, the worse we're more likely to repeat it. And we're more likely to have negative impact on our life? We will. It's a flat fact. We're not more likely to. It's going to happen. We're also going to have a negative impact on other human beings, the people that we care about the most, as a result of holding on to that shame. I'm talking about letting it go. More about that. We're not talking all about shame today, but in order for you to fully internalize the belief that behavior has no impact on your own value, you must process shame. It must become to be okay, I don't know if that's right. That doesn't sound right, but you must come to believe that no matter what you have done, nothing that you have done has affected your value as a human being, and that it's okay that you did that. It's not okay. It's not a good idea that you did the thing if you wish you wouldn't have. That's not what I'm saying. It's okay to your value. Nothing touched or scratched your value. You can go back and fix it, make amends, do everything you can to not repeat it if that's what you want to do in your lifetime, and you're more likely to do so if you take a look at that and say, the reason that happened is not because that I'm defective, it's because I'm a human being. More on that to come. So behavior has consequences, but what it can't do is damage a human being's worth. Okay, so that's separating what we do, behavior, from who we are, our worth, or our value as human beings. Assumption 3 is the principle, the worth work principle, which means we judge the work and we protect the person. We critique the work because we must. I mean, that's why we're here. We're here to judge the work and improve the work and have consequences about the work. The work can also be called, in the workplace, we call it judge the work. You can also say judge the behavior, but always protect the person. Protect the person meaning never devalue a human being based on what they do or don't do. We always protect the person's value. Those are the 3 main concepts. If you've got those, you don't have to have them perfect. They're never going to be perfect for as long as you live. And if you see in this example, this is my example, you're going to see that I don't have perfect implementation all day, every day. But what you'll see is that I work to implement the system, and as I do, my results get better and better. And I have faster response times, and it takes me less time to get a better result. And that's what I want for you. Better results in less time. And here's how we roll with this. Here's my example. Okay. So we're going to call this person Larry, even though that's not their name. And we'll say that Larry works here. Now, I have had a couple guys work here named Larry, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about something that happened yesterday. And right now, we don't have anybody named Larry that works here, meaning my horse feed company here in Las Vegas, Nevada, Jacob Livestock. So I get a call from Larry. He works in the hay yard. He works for Jacob Livestock. That's not true. That's not what happened. I call Larry. That's the first thing that happened. And we had an incoming delivery of hay cubes. And there was an incoming delivery, and I needed to know how much it cost, how much the cost of. I needed to know the amount on the bill of lading so I could get payment ready, so would be all set. So I called Larry on the phone yesterday. And I said, hey Larry, can you get the bill of lading from the driver and call me back with the total so I can get the payment ready for the driver? So sure, yeah, everything's good. So we hang up and end the call. And before a few minutes later, my phone's ring, 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 ring. So I pick my phone up and I swipe it to answer. And I put it up to my ear. And before I could even say hello, I hear 7150 in my ear. Now, I paused. There were some thoughts going through my mind when that happened. Okay. And I didn't say anything. I just paused for about 2 or 3 seconds. And then I said, hello, kind of like that. And he said, can't you hear me? And I said, yes, I hear you. And he said, it's 7150. And I said, okay. And I ended the call. Now, let me tell you what's going on inside my mind. Okay. As soon as I picked up that phone and I swiped it to answer and I put it up to my ear and I heard it's 7150, immediately with no thought, my total reaction was, why did you just do that? That's rude as hell. What is the matter with you? How many times have we went through phone etiquette of how we treat each other on the phone, how we treat each other with customers? Um, you are rude. You are, I don't know what, uh, you are rude. That is wrong. What is the matter with you? Can't you remember anything? What is the problem? You know, every one of those thoughts was a negative value judgment about Larry based on his behavior. Everything that it happened like that. Okay. As soon as I heard that, as a matter of fact, when I said hello, after he said 7150, I said hello. And I was kind of in my mind, I thought, well, maybe he'll realize that I didn't say hello before he started talking in my ear. But he didn't. He just said, well, can you hear me? It's 7150. Now, why is this a big deal and why did I automatically have all these thoughts? Well, a little bit of backstory is that that's not the way we roll here in my company. What we do with each other, and especially with customers, but even with each other, we always, when we're making the call, we wait for the recipient of the call to acknowledge that they're there and ready to hear what we called for before we start talking. For example, in my case, we would the way that I want our company to operate is that when he calls me, he waits for me to acknowledge that I'm there and ready to hear him by saying something like hello or I'm here or hello. I mean, that's the common response that most of us use. Here, we say hello. To answer the phone, meaning I'm here and ready to hear this, rather than somebody's about to say something and then somebody in the other end starts talking in their ear. A lot of times people can interpret that as rude, as disrespectful. And I did too. I do too. When people don't give me a chance to acknowledge, I can make that mean that, that it's disrespectful. Now, is it? Did they mean that? Probably not. Who knows? I just don't want to, that's not the way we roll. That's not the way we do things because I don't want to take the chance that we're offending each other or our customers. So now, why is all this little story important? Okay. After 30 plus years of screwing up and having horrible results, I haven't had horrible results every day for 30 years. What I'm telling you, I have done so many things wrong in managing people that this is a good example of it. I have done a lot of bad behavior and trying to manage and figure things out and how people work. That's why we got this podcast, that I can guarantee you this. I know from experience, and you do too, that if he hears my frustration, one of two bad results is going to happen. He's going to have non-compliance. He's going to be defensiveness, or he's just going to kind of be, yes man, who agrees to everything, and he doesn't change anything because in the back of his mind, he's got some negative thoughts of his own rolling around now. So I ended the call before I had any frustration, sneak out, I'm pretty sure. And so the first thing that I did is, first of all, even in the call, in the short few moments that happened, I recognized that I was frustrated. Okay. Now, that took a few seconds because I just fired right back. Hello, hello. It sounded more like hello, hello. And then, he's like, well, can't you hear me? And I said, yes. And then he said it again. And I said, okay, thanks. Ended the call. So what am I going to do with this? First of all, I was glad that I ended the call and had a time to, that's the first thing, because I recognized that I was angry. So I thanked him and ended the call. That's number one, is recognize when when your emotions change, when you feel the frustration, when you feel the anger, when you feel the disappointment, step one is to recognize. I'm going to go through these steps because they're important. The first thing to do is to recognize, okay? You must have the awareness if you're going to do anything. If you don't recognize the frustration in yourself, nothing else in the system is going to work. And I could feel myself getting angry in the call, not crazy angry, but angry enough that it could be that he would recognize it, most likely. Okay, I'm sure he would. A lot of times we think, oh, I'm hiding it. Oh, I was polite. Oh, I didn't say anything that was terribly rude. But your feelings inside of you, they're coming out. That you think you're hiding them, but we're not. I'm telling you, they're coming out. People know what's in your heart and soul. I learned that, first of all, with horses, because I mean, hell, there ain't no secrets in the barn. You know what I'm saying? If you come into the barn, good luck holding on to that. They know what you're thinking before you even get there. As soon as you enter the property, they're like, hey, something's wrong with him. Horses. And people, a lot of times, they're not quite as perceptive as horses, because horses, it's their nature to live and survive and protect themselves. They have to be super hyper focused on everything, and all the unsaid things that happen around them. But you know what? People are way more perceptive than we think they are. They know what's going on. Our tone, our this, our that, the way that all the other ways that we communicate besides our choice of words, they're coming out. And people know what the hell we're talking. They know what's going on inside of us. We can't hide it. So, I recognize my frustration. Okay, I ended the call. Now, then what I was actually set up, and I recognize my thoughts too. You rude blank. What the hell's the matter with you? How many times have we been through this? You are this, you are that. Okay. All of those are what are called negative value judgments. Okay. That's what's rolling around in the back of my head. Now, how's this going to go? It's not going to go well. Okay. What I was actually frustrated about is that Larry didn't follow our protocol, and I felt a little bit disrespected and disregarded. Okay. And that's the way that, not just because of that specific call, but because of his training and his lack, he just didn't do it. And he's been taught and trained and asked and requested and agreed on that's not why we do things, but then he still did it. So I identified my automatic thoughts, you don't care about anything, or you don't pay attention, all these things that are not factual. They're just my value judgments. Okay. You're rude. You don't care. You don't pay attention. All those are what are called negative value judgments. Those are not factual. Those are me and my mind placing negative value on Larry based on what he did, his behavior. The problem that I had was the way that the call was handled, not Larry. My problem was with the behavior, that I picked up the phone before I had a chance to say anything. He's talking in my ear pretty loud. That was the problem, not Larry. Larry's not the problem. As a matter of fact, a lot of people in a lot of circumstances, and maybe even me in a different circumstance, wouldn't even, I mean, is it really that big of a deal? Does that mean Larry's a certain way? Is he really totally a messed up idiot because of the way that he handled that call? I don't think so. But according to me in that moment, that's what was happening in my thought process. Now, a lot of times people were taught, and a lot of times people train, promote the idea of assume good intent. Well, I'm upset right now, but I'm going to assume good intent. And let me just tell you something about good intent. I believe in assuming good intent, by the way, but I'm here to tell you that about this about that, excuse me. Assuming good intent is not enough. Okay. It's not going to be enough. The separation of what they did and their value as a person can't be conditioned on what the intent was. Okay, what do I mean by that? What I mean is it doesn't matter what the intent is. Let's just say that Larry had ill intent, that he did it on purpose. He just had he just wanted to upset me because he's quitting later that day and he wanted to get a dig in, or he wanted to be offensive, or who knows what his intent would be. Let's just say that his intent was not what I would judge to be good intent. Does that matter? Doesn't matter. Remember, behavior, regardless, it doesn't matter why or what. No matter what people do or don't do has no effect on their value or their worth as a person. So therefore, the intent, irrelevant. Okay, so that's why assuming good intent is not enough, because it doesn't matter. The consequence matters. That's the work or the behavior, not the person, not Larry. Okay. The separation or the non-judgment of the human being can't be conditioned on intent. Very important concept there. So even if he still did it on purpose, that wouldn't change his worth or his value, right? Doesn't mean anything about him. It just means that he did something on purpose. Oh, well. Step 3. So quick recap. I've recognized that I'm feeling frustrated or angry or disappointed. I'm recognizing I'm changing how something just changed of why I feel. What changed? My thoughts. So now I recognize my thoughts. What are my thoughts? My thoughts are that I'm putting this negative, I'm having these negative value thought judgments about Larry. And I saw that. Then I say to myself, wait a minute. I do this separation skill. Okay. And I say, what am I actually upset here? And I separate the work, I separate the behavior from Larry. Okay. And now I can see that the problem that I have here is the way that the call is handled. It's not Larry personally. Okay. That's the separation skill. Then the next step, step 3 in the thought process is that, well, the principle is called judge the work, protect the person, but actually in application, you protect the person first. Okay, then we judge the work. Step 3 is to protect the person. So what does that mean? How do we protect the person in your own mind? The principle, like I said, is judge the work, protect the person. But when we apply it, the step 3 is to protect. That's the mental order. Okay, is to protect the person first in your own mind before you go and address the work. I know, because I used to address the work thinking I was protecting the person, but it works so much better. It really doesn't work well doing it that way. You need to protect the person, which means I come back to the value foundation. Okay, and I remind myself that, hey, Larry is 100% human being. He's 100% valuable, just like me, just like you. No different, no less, no more. He is 100% valuable. And he did what he did is separate from that. I'm just talking about Larry. He did something, whatever. I've done something, you've done something. We do things all day long that are imperfect, right? For a myriad of reasons why, doesn't even matter. Okay. So I come back and step 3 is in my mind, I'm going to protect Larry. I'm going to protect his person. I'm not going to make this personal about him. I'm only going to look at the work. Now, I've had these 3 little 1, 2, 3 little steps in my mind. And now it's time. Once I actually believe that, okay, once I've gone through my little thought process, I know I'm ready to talk to Larry, because he will feel how I show up. Okay, before I even say a word, he's probably going to know what this is about. Now, I've talked a lot about this process and how in this one phone call that took only a few seconds, but I want you to know that the entire internal process took me about 30 seconds, okay, to recognize, what am I thinking? What am I feeling first? What am I thinking? Do I want to think this? And then I do my separation. I do my value judgment on step 3, which is I'm going to protect Larry. He's 100%. I'm no better than him. He's no better than me. And I'm going to take care of Larry. This is not personal. It's only about what he did. That whole process took me about 30 seconds. And eventually you can get where it's going to take you like 10, 15 seconds. Okay. And then I'm ready for the conversation with Larry. So I called Larry back and I asked him to meet me in the barn for 5 minutes. Okay. And when I got there, I prefaced the conversation. I said, hey, Larry, just remember, this isn't about you. This isn't personal. This is just about how we do things here. And there's one thing about that I need you to change. Okay. And then I explained to him again that we let the person acknowledge that they're there on the line, but before we start talking. Okay. Especially with customers, but with everybody here. And with the customer, it would actually be a disciplinary issue, okay? Because we're that serious about how we treat other people for our customers, okay? So when it's delivered, when that conversation comes to him with high respect and high regard and no anger and no malice and no manipulation and no dishonesty and no, I'm trying to trick you. He doesn't need to get offensive, okay? And if it's the first time, people are kind of confused and it'll take them a little while if they're not used to hearing this kind of a conversation, or if you have a habit of letting people see your frustration, which I've done plenty of, or see your anger, it's going to take them a while before the trust goes up. You can't flip the switch with people's trust, but you start treating them like, well, first of all, if you believe in yourself that you have perfect worth regardless of what you do, and that you believe inside yourself that no matter what you've done, it doesn't negatively affect your value as a human being, you automatically start looking at people in the same way, and that helps. It's required, actually. Then we start applying the system by going through these little steps, these little thought processes. 1, 2, 3. I can do it in 30 seconds, whatever. Take a whole minute if you want. Go through that and then go out and have the conversation, or go into the conversation, however you go into it. We can objectively look at what needs to change, because we're going to constantly be needing to look to improve what's happening. But people don't want to change and improve what's happening. They just want to know that they're doing a good job. But you know what they really want to know? Not necessarily that they're doing a good job. They want to know that their value is solid, that you don't devalue them based on no matter what they did, that you respect and regard them regardless of what they do. Okay. And that doing things wrong is going to be we're going to need to normalize that. That's the way it rolls. You see them the way that you see yourself, and that is that you sometimes do things wrong, but together we're going to look at work. We're going to only look at judge the work, okay, openly, and we're going to work to improve the work. And it doesn't have anything to do with you being wrong with you. Okay. And like I said, the reason is because there's so much fear, because the stakes are so high, of why this matters so much at work. Okay. The reason this works is what changes is the culture. But I mean, what is culture? I mean, you need to say something, put it on the wall. And people need to know what you consider your culture is. But really what the culture is the way that the people in the group think. Okay. And as you start to change the way that you think and believe as the leader, and you start showing up and relating to other people that way, plus you promote your ideas, okay, on the wall and in conversation and the way that we roll around here and in all your policy and this and that and the other, then if everybody starts to operate on similar value systems and similar beliefs, and we all start to internalize these ideas that I'm providing for you in this system, that is what changes culture. And that is when the magic starts happening in a group. I mean, you're going to talk about major cooperation, major collaboration, major effectiveness, and major people showing up with a badass attitude, showing up ready to get some stuff done. loyalty, appreciation, and honesty. When we as leaders, when we stop judging the people, when we start do less or no negative value judgments on people. I don't know if we can do never do any, but if we do less, people start bracing for meetings. They become more self-reliant. They don't need as much personal management. They have less conflict with each other, less gossip, because as they start to change and think and believe with you in these ideas, that's when that's when the culture changes. Okay, the sign on the wall doesn't change it. What people think is what changes the culture. And as the belief changes across the team and throughout the company, that's when higher productivity, more engagement, fewer fights, less defensiveness. And as we know, defensive is expensive, right? When people feel like it's okay to screw up here, it's okay, because we just fix it. We look at the work and we fix it and we move on. We don't make it mean something about you. Okay, that's when we start to get that's when things start changing in a big time positive way. The math on the time for implementation today, I've talked a lot about it, broken it down to each little detail and each little thought and each little this. From the moment I got off the call with Larry, okay, for me to go through the internal system of thinking this through, 1, 2, 3, okay, recognize, separate, protect the person, okay, it took me less than a minute, okay. The in-person meeting, because I did it in person, it added about 15 minutes. I mean, me getting there and me getting back and talking to him for a couple minutes about it. The whole thing was roughly around 16 minutes, okay. A phone call version probably would have been, I don't know, under 6 minutes for sure. So implementation takes a little bit of time in the front. As this becomes a habit, as we become familiar, and as we internalize these ideas and these beliefs, as we develop these beliefs inside of ourselves, implementation gets faster as it becomes a habit. And I will guarantee you, it's no matter how long it takes, it is time well spent, because I can assure you, doing things where the normal way, and the normal way, we are normalized. This is totally opposite of normal thinking, of the way human beings think. We automatically, just like I did, we do this all day long. Everyone, I don't think, there might be exceptions, but I don't know who they are. Everybody I've ever talked to automatically has value judgment assumptions that are reactions that happen immediately all the time. The question is what are we going to do with them? And as we change what we do with them, and as we change our belief system, we have less of those immediate reactions, and we have a shorter response time, and we can implement the system faster, and then we're operating on a whole new level. Okay, it's time well spent. That's what I can tell you. However long it takes, it's time well spent, and it doesn't take that long. Listen, my friends, I appreciate you being here with me today. Remember, you are 100% valuable. Your value is non-negotiable. See you next week.